Now let's talk about arguably the most important part of being a great host. In fact, definitely the most important part of being a great host, which is providing a great experience for your guests. Our most popular hosts get 2/3 of their business from repeat guests. So providing a great experience for your guests is a super important way to build up a large number of visitors by getting those repeat visitors to come back. So let's talk about providing a great guest experience. Here are the things that really make a difference for providing a great guest experience. Number one, make sure that your listing sets accurate expectations. So this goes back to providing a complete listing. Fill in all the information for your spot. Make sure that everything in your listing is accurate. So when people show up, they're going to see what they expect to see, and they're going to have the experience they expect to have based on your listing. You don't want people to have any negative surprises when they show up. Make visiting your spot pleasant for guests and their dogs. And we'll talk a little bit more about this because there are some things that are a little bit counterintuitive to some people about about what it means to provide a pleasant visit for guests and their dogs. Make it easy to find your spot. You'd be amazed how often guests have trouble locating their spot, or even aren't sure if they've arrived at the correct spot when they get there. Number 4, keep your spot clean. This is really about picking up all the dog waste that may be in your spot if you have dogs yourself, and making sure that there's no, limiting the extraneous objects that are in your spot as well. So keeping a clean spot is something the guests really appreciate. Number 5, this is a fun one, providing amazing amenities. And we'll go into more detail on this because this is a place where you can really make your spot stand out. And number 6, providing great value by setting the right price. So we won't go into more detail on this, but it's basically about aligning the value you're providing with the price that you're setting. And the way you can do this is by experimenting with price. Don't be afraid to experiment with price. We recommend, especially when you're first starting out, to set a lower price. And then over time, as you become established, you can increase your price to reflect the fact that you've kind of got a built reputation in our community. And number 7, learn from guests and other hosts. This is the big one because every spot is different. Every spot attracts a different kind of customer. So you can't really apply just a cookie cutter best way to make a spot great experience for guests. You got to learn from your guests and learn from other hosts with similar spots to try new things. And again, similar to making the best listing for your spot, you can find all of this information in our help center. So these are the areas that we're going to go into detail for in this webinar. Making your spot pleasant for guests and dogs to visit, making it easy to find your spot, providing amazing amenities, and learning from guests and other hosts. Are there any questions, or I want to make sure that if any of the participants want to ask questions, then they can ask them. So participants, you should be able, if you do have questions, you should be able to unmute and ask them. If you don't have questions, obviously it's fine to just listen. All right, so let's keep moving forward. So making your spot pleasant for guests and their dogs to visit. For guests, it's pretty simple. So this is something that many hosts don't necessarily realize. Most guests actually prefer enjoying spots in privacy. So we recommend either one, giving a short introduction to guests and then letting them enjoy your spot, or setting up your spot to not require introductions at all. So guests can self-serve, can arrive there and visit and enjoy your spot without needing to check in or do anything like that. So this is nice for guests. Guests often they're going to spots to play with their dog or train or exercise, and they like just being able to go and enjoy their spots. So, sometimes hosts feel like, oh, I have to entertain these guests or I have to hang out with these guests while they're there. That's actually not the case. Most guests enjoy just enjoying their spots in privacy. And as a host, you don't have to be entertaining these guests the whole time that they're there. For guest dogs, this is a really important part of providing a pleasant experience for guests and their dogs. Many of our visiting dogs are reactive. And what this means is that they might not get along well with people, dogs, or other animals. So it's really important to be sensitive to these guest dogs when they're visiting. And don't just assume that, don't make assumptions about guest dogs that are coming. So here are some tips for making sure that you're being sensitive to every guest dog that's coming to visit. First, always confirm in advance with a guest before approaching the guest dogs to welcome them when they arrive. You can do this through messaging. Either assume that you stay back and out of the way so that guests can have a kind of safe and pleasant entrance to your spot, or confirm in advance before you approach them. Always plan to keep dogs, people, and other animals separate from spots during visits. This is actually a Sniffspot requirement that all spots need to be free of dogs, people, and other animals during visits. Make sure that people that live or work on the property are aware of visits. Sometimes people have roommates or there are workmen that are around on the property. So making sure they're aware of visits so there aren't surprises can actually make a big difference. And it prevents surprises in the spot. Like a workman might just go into the spot thinking they're going to repair something, and they'll come across a guest and their dog. And if the spot isn't closed, during spot visits, don't open gates or doors to the spot because it could be that the dog will run through the open gate or door and exit the spot, and that obviously can cause issues and disrupt the visit. So if you follow these tips, it's actually it can make a really big difference with guests and their dogs for having a good visit. All right, so making it easy to visit your spot. So similar to this is again similar to this theme we've had about providing a really easy experience. People just want ease. So when someone's already booked your spot, when they're coming out to visit, making it easy to get to your spot. This is really important, especially because most of these spots are going to be unfamiliar to first-time guests. So it might really not be obvious how to get there or how to access the spot once they get there. You can help with this by providing clear access instructions. So in your host account, when you're setting up your listing, there's a field for access instructions. Make sure when you're completing that field to include parking information, the location of the Sniffspot entrance when you get there. If there's an access code, include that code. Include where the garbage is for the pet waste bags. And if there are any special considerations, make sure to include them. Think through in your head as a guest, what's it going to be like going to visit your spot? And what kind of questions would a guest have, and try to answer those, especially if you live in a space that's maybe not the easiest to find. Another great thing to do is add signs to help guests find your spot once they get there. Many of our spots have signs at the roadside, at the parking spot, and at the Sniffspot entrance. that helps make it really clear as a guest to know I'm in the right spot. This is how I go in, and it's very simple. And in our help center, we actually provide templates for those signs to make it really easy for you to get set up with those signs. Providing amazing amenities. So once someone comes to your spot, they get access to your spot, there's so much fun stuff you can do to help people have a great time in your spot. So amenities could be anything from agility equipment to signs, to custom welcome signs, to treats, to kiddie pools, to boxes with toys for the dogs. Really, the sky's the limit. And we've seen hosts be really creative with the kind of amenities that they provide. So you can try anything. Ask your guests what kind of things they would enjoy. Think about what you would enjoy playing with a dog, and you can really bring a lot of joy to your guest experience through the amenities that you provide. Here's a little more detail on the kinds of things that we've seen that are that are really cool for guests to have when they're going to visit. First, there's some things that we would call basics. These are things that guests that we would consider to be a baseline experience for guests visiting Sniffspots. So providing a trash can for dog waste bags, providing chairs, having water for the dogs, having some toys for the dogs, having signs so people can actually see where to enter the spot, and having sanitizer so that guests can sanitize any toys or water before and after they're visiting their spot. And we go into more detail in the help center on what kind of sanitizer we recommend providing. And then there's above and beyond things you can provide as amenities. And really the list goes on, but it could be agility equipment, kiddie pools, treats, lighting. If you have a restroom, the default with Sniffspots is that guests expect to not have any restroom available. If you have a restroom that's accessible directly to the outside, then providing a restroom option for guests can make a big difference for them. Providing visual barriers. So if you have neighbors, having some kind of visual barrier. Maybe it's if you have a fence that's not transparent, then that's obviously not an issue. But many have chicken wire fences or other kinds of fences. So you can add visual barriers to block neighbors' properties from your property, and same thing from your house to provide additional privacy to guests that are visiting your spot. But the list goes on and on. There's so many fun things you can do with amenities. So I would highly recommend to just get creative and think about fun things that can really make a difference for your guests. And the last thing we're going to cover today for providing a great experience for your guests is to learn from guests and other hosts. So this is one of the most important things because, like I said, every spot is different and it's going to attract different kinds of people. So innovating and finding your own niche is a really important thing to do. And a great way to do it is by asking guests what they thought, learning from guests. So you can message guests after they visit and ask them what they loved, ask them what they didn't love, and ask them how you can improve. And guests are often really happy to provide feedback to make things better. You can also learn from other hosts. So make sure to join our Sniffspot community group on Facebook. We have many guests and hosts that are frequently communicating in the group, and people love sharing ideas and getting feedback. So this is a really easy way to learn a lot and learn how you can make your Sniffspot better and better.